I'm not hearing anything.
Kyle, there's no sound.
No sound.
Well, I'm going to stop that. Oh, so there's a welcome video on our Facebook page. So if you go to the New York State PTA Facebook page, you can see that welcome video. Lori is our president, Lori Zaman. She is just welcoming you all to today's event. We have 660 people registered. So we're really, really excited about that. So we're going to jump right in. Hot topics in education. We have until 2 o'clock. So someone wave at me when we're getting close. I'm going to set my alarm. I do want this to be interactive. So we're going to go over the things that I was going to plan on covering. And I also want to talk then through the chat box on what you want me to cover in addition to what I had planned to cover. Much of the stuff is going to revolve around some opening questions. So let's get started. Do you guys see my screen now with hot topics in education? No, you don't. Okay, give me a second. How about now?
Yes.
Great. Okay, we're going to jump right in. So I want to move to what you want to discuss. And so let's go right to the chat box. So the things I'm going to discuss, just so you know, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Department of Health reopening guidelines and SED reopening guidelines. We're going to talk about where we are with diplomas and superintendent determination. Talk a little bit about special education. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health and social emotional learning, and if we can get to it, I'm unsure, we're going to talk about family engagement. So let's go to the chat box and tell me what we want to talk about besides these things. You can still see my screen, yes? Great. Okay, so what else do we have on the list? Anything? I'm going to give a minute to people to chat in that chat box. Yep, PTA role during pandemic, social justice, diversity and inclusion. Yes, I don't know why that's popping up. So yeah, that weird, the heat thing is gone. I'll keep checking on that. Black Lives Matter, we'll put that up on social justice. Events within parents, special education, IEP, we're going to talk about that already. Just keeping myself notes. Okay, so I added to our agenda federal government. We're going to cover a little bit RIT, response to intervention, when we talk about going back to school. I am never going to get to all of this stuff. These are all wonderful things. School aid. And I have inequities. Yeah, digital inequity. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we talk about reopening. I'm going to have to schedule another one of these hot topics. Holy moly. Resources. Parent involvement, we have that on there already. Social emotional, we're going to cover that. Reopening, we're going to cover reopening plans, yep. I know, we do need a whole day, Janine. Virtual event planning, oh, that's a good idea. There's so many things here. I'm almost feeling like maybe in 2 weeks we'll do another one of these at night during the week, and we can cover some of these topics too. Undocumented families. I'm keeping a list because I know we're not going to be able to cover all of these things, but I do feel like we'll schedule a second one. Okay, so I'm going to start. Can you guys still see my some topics, it says? Okay, great. So let's just jump right in. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about reopening first. As you know, yesterday, all of the state school districts under the Department of Health and SED original guidance had to submit their plans yesterday for review to the Department of Education. there was a little bit of controversy because the Department of Education said that they were allowing 1-week extensions for school districts to submit their plans. The Department of Health, however, said that they were not allowing extensions. So most school districts did submit their plans yesterday. As a part of that process, now I want everyone to write, we need a sheet of paper with homework. As a part of that process, your school district should have involved all of their stakeholders in at least the conversation about reopening. We had sent an alert to unit leaders and to members saying, take action, have those conversations with your school district. Just a show of hands, how many people did hear from their school district as a parent or educator that they were, about something about reopening? Did they have reopening meetings? Did they have Zoom calls? Show of hands, what did that look like? I just want to get a show. Keep those hands up for me so I can see where. So I'm seeing many hands. So in the chat box, I do want to share, if you can share, because we are recording this, if you could share and type what types of things your school districts did do for parents. So did they send a survey out? Did they have Zoom calls? So in that chat box, if you can just share that, that would be great. So we can go to the chat box to see survey, survey, survey. Only because we insisted, I'm glad you insisted. Survey, in-person meeting. Oh, that's really, that's interesting. Survey webinars, survey Zoom meetings. Oh, good, focus group PTA presidents, that's fantastic. Building staff leaders. Oh, 2-question survey, Susan, I don't love that one. Board of meeting, parents are able to watch and submit questions. YouTube Board of Education meeting. Okay, so it looks like at least there was some outreach. Did anybody not have any outreach? So if you didn't have any outreach from your school district, I'd be interested in the chat box that you didn't have any outreach. Can you still hear me okay? Okay, great. I just got a weird message. Okay, so let's go forward. So this is the link to our New York State PTA COVID page, and I do want to bring that up. So give me a second just to show you that. And on that page, if I can get there, it's not liking me right now. On that page, can you see that New York State PTA page now? Can you see it says COVID-19? Yes. Somebody shake their head for me.
Yes, we can.
Great. So on this page, on our homepage, all the way over on the left, it says COVID-19. This is where we're putting a lot of resources for you all during the closure and during the crisis. In particular, we have a link that says New York State Education Department. That has all of the guidance there. So this is something that you should send to your units if you can. Because we continue just to put information here. So check back frequently. Anything we put here, we also put on our Facebook page. So please check that Facebook page. So again, NewYorkStatePTA.org, then go over to that COVID page. I do want to touch base, we're back on my PowerPoint. I do want to touch base on a few things that are critical, and we get questions a lot on reopening guidance. The link is to the Department of Health guidance, which is shorter, it's 23 pages. The SED guidance is 145 pages, but I wanted to have both links in here. They're also on that COVID-19 page. So I want to actually have the language there so you can look at it. So this is the Department of Health guidance. It talks about face coverings. It talks about what kind of face coverings are appropriate. And it talks about when they should be worn. So according to the Department of Health guidance, face coverings must be worn in a school building when distance is not possible. So distance is considered 6 foot. It does allow within school buildings if children are distanced in a classroom. The Department of Health and the SED guidance does allow for mass breaks. So I want to make sure everyone is aware of that. So again, I'll repeat it, and we can read it here. If a student is in a classroom, distance 6 foot apart from peers and their teacher, in an instructional setting, so they are being actively taught by the teacher, they can have that mask off for a mask break. That is a part of your plan, and that would be included in whatever your school district had submitted. It's my understanding that most school districts have allowed, you guys are frozen on me. Can you hear me?
Kyle, so it's yours is coming in choppy for all of us. It comes off synthesized.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Trying to get better, of course. You know, we're in a, it says I have full bars, but that never how it works. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. So I'm going to keep going. So we do have, so there is information there about masks in the Department of Health guidance. There is also information about social distancing. Can someone type in the chat box if you see the screen about social distancing? Do you see that? Yes, great. I know, so there is a big debate about masks, but we'll come back to the use of masks. So social distancing, again, in the Department of Health guidance said that school districts have to try to social distance children at all times. That also mean, and below that is their spaces, it is also required that school districts actually try to find extra space in the entire school building, so they actually have to use all available space. So as an example, our school district is using unused pre-K rooms, our library, our cafeteria for classrooms, our music room, and our art room, so they can distance kids. So that's something that you want to check in your plans that are submitted to make sure that you are using all available and additional space. Also, so this is again for in-person and yes, well, your district, just as an FYI, if they were going to use outdoor space regularly, that would be in their plan. That was a question on the SAD portal, is are you using outdoor space regularly? So you would check with your school district if that is, so they did have to answer that yes or no. So that was a great question. Yeah, so hold on to that question, Kira, and I will get back to that. It's also important that all school districts had to try to prioritize in-person instruction if they could socially distance. What we're seeing statewide is we're seeing many school districts have in-person instruction, you know, more than not for elementary school, so for K-5. And then we're seeing more hybrid models for middle school and high school with an A-B rotation. Just in the chat box for your school district, is that kind of what you're seeing? You're seeing an elementary generally go back and then an A-B rotation for your older students? So just let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of yeses. So that typically, it looks like it's going to be K3 A-B rotation. So yeah, so that's typically what we're seeing right now with plans. It's really important for everyone to know. Mara, your plan should be posted by today on your website, district's website. So you should check your school district website for that, because that should be posted up there today. It should have been online. Yeah, oh, and I saw a pre-K through 12 A-B rotation. Mara, yeah, let me know what district it is. Shoot me an email, and once I see that plan, I'll send it over to you. For transportation, it's really important that right now, all children have to wear masks on a bus fully. Many school districts are doing temp checks before children get into a school bus. So that's also something that you want to see in your plan and what they are doing for transportation. And as a remember, every school district had to submit kind of 3 plans. So they had to submit an in-person plan, however many kids they could get in person. They had to then submit a hybrid plan. Oh yeah, Sophia's texting that right now. They had to submit a hybrid plan. Then they also had to submit oh no plan, I'll call it, if they had to go remote very quickly. I know many people are concerned with transportation, and I'll get to that in a minute, Beth. For vulnerable populations, they also had to submit a plan that has different rules for vulnerable populations for both students, faculty, and staff with underlying conditions. So if you have a child that is medically fragile or has a high-risk medical diagnosis, then the school district had to have in their plan that they submitted yesterday some type of plan to educate their students, typically in a remote setting. So we are seeing that in plans. On temp checks, some school districts are actually doing it themselves. So some school districts I've seen are doing it with an aide on the school bus. So before a child gets on the bus, their temp is checked by the school district. And then if they are being dropped off by the parent, their temp is being checked before they enter the building. Some school districts are having the parent check the temperature. So they are different. And I'm seeing Nicole had posted that parents will log in temps on an app. That's really interesting. I haven't actually seen that yet. So that's really interesting, Nicole. So know that that is very different as well. Also in the Department of Health guidance, again, on our website, they did talk about how districts had to cohort themselves or work in very small groups. They also had to talk about food service. Many districts are not having cafeterias open in a traditional sense. They're having food delivered to classrooms. So that's something to look at in your plan, is how they're going to do food delivery for children, because all school districts still have to offer some type of food option. I will say it doesn't have to be a hot food option. So for our, for example, our school district is going to be doing food delivery service with like sub sandwiches and things like that. Yeah, so Susan had posted they have to order the cold food lunch a few days in advance. That's what I'm seeing typical, is more of a cold food lunch. And then those lunches for children are going to be delivered to classrooms. I think that's probably the biggest difference we're going to see in our school buildings, is that children are going to stay in classrooms as much as they can. Pros and cons. Obviously pros for cohort reasons and safety reasons, but always, I know as a parent myself, my child's going into 6th grade. I can't even believe it. He's 10 years old. I worry that he's going to lose stuff, right? I worry that he may lose some of the arts and music and extracurricular activities. I hear you, and I feel that, like with all other parents. I think that the state's weighing the health and safety of our students with the extras right now. Even though I know art is an extra, art is needed for every child, and so is physical education, and so is library, and all of those important topics. But I do think that we're going to open, it's going to look very different, where children are going to stay in their classrooms as much as they can. They also talked about ventilation. In the Department of Health guidance, it talked to school districts about trying to open the windows as much as possible to get fresh air in the building. Another controversial topic, because of school safety concerns, right? What do we know now? School buildings are generally closed and doors are locked, and windows are, at least open, but sometimes closed if it's a safety concern. So that's something that we have to work through as well. Also in the Department of Health guidance, there's rules about what you have to trace and when you close and return to school. This is a recent debate because it is reasonably vague. But I know the Department of Health and SED are working with school districts now to try to come up with some hard and fast rules. Right now, is my understanding, if a school district does have a positive case, they follow their plan, they would immediately contact the Department of Health to figure out who would have to go home, who would have to quarantine, et cetera, et cetera. So brief overview of the Department of Health guidance. Like I said, it's 23 pages long, only touched a tiny bit of it, but do link on that and take some time to read through it. It's a reasonably good document. Like I said, only 23 pages. Now, the SED, oh, interesting, Kara, I am seeing in the chat there, we are seeing some ventilation things that are happening with windows and fans. Now onto the SED reopening guidance. This is 145 pages long. It's very long. It's very, what I did here is I copied, they released an FAQ document, which is at this link as well. It is kind of the hot topics. It's 2 pages long. Read that FAQ. Read that FAQ document, please. It answers some questions, and then again, the big document's 145 pages. So just some quick topics on FAQs. Do students and staff have to maintain a 6-foot distance from others at all times? Super hot debate right now on this issue. You know, so the rule is that if they cannot maintain a 6-foot distance, they have to be masked, children and faculty. However, school districts should do everything they can to maintain that 6-foot district, 6-foot distance. This is going to be, I think, the biggest debate when, you know, whether school districts are back full-time, whether they're a hybrid, whether they're, you know, remote, etc. And you see here, 6-foot distance should be maintained between individuals unless for safety issues or unless something requires a shorter distance. Down at the bottom, face coverings are required to be worn at any time or any place. Individuals cannot maintain that distance. So however, schools can require face coverings even during instruction if they want. So, so again, that's something you should look for in your school plan. I know parents and families fall on both sides of that debate. Some parents and families, if the child is 6, 8, 10 foot away from another child, they do want that child to take their mask off. And then some parents want the child to keep the mask on all the time. So that's something to look for in your plan on how they are dealing with that issue, because that will be spelled out. Mask breaks should be spelled out in your plan. Some other, yes, and so Gina's saying districts are encouraging masks. You know, there is no time for a mask break. It's a great question, Jennifer. What I'm seeing, at least for example, in my school's plan, is that we were able to actually distance children 8 to 10 feet is what we're being told, which is a great distance in all of our classrooms, because they're using every possible space in our school building to, you know, break kids up. So in that case, in instructional settings, it may be a half-hour instruction, the child would be able to take the mask off. Look at that, for 30 minutes, Kevin. Yeah, that seems to be typical for some breaks. Again, we've talked about cohorting already. That's keeping the kids together in a group. We've talked already about people at risk of severe illness. As I talked about, the medically fragile and DOH. The SED guidance mirrors the DOH guidance and then adds a bunch more educational things. It's very, very important when we talk about masks and face coverings. Originally, we had thought the visors, you know, the plastic visors would be okay if someone couldn't wear a cloth mask. The new guidance is really now cloth masks. So I think you're going to see a real push to have those cloth masks on our students that are old enough. So that's important to look for too in your plan. Return to school after illness. Again, schools are going to work with their local health department when you have something that happens. That is in some of the Department of Health guidance, but that's going to be in your plan too. So check that out. Again, meals. We talked about, no, nothing about covering eyes, Kara. You don't have to cover eyes. Meals in, again, cafeteria are going to be rare. So I think you're going to see a push in meal service. We talked about that already. Again, masks on a bus, we talked about that. All children and bus drivers, transportation officials are going to have masks on. And again, health screening, the guidance says they hope parents can take it at home. I know many school districts are also going to be taking it before a child enters the school building. So we're going to see how that works out, because we have, I don't know if you all, we have one of the temporal scanners that we use at my office every day. So I want to stop here and I want to just see, you know, that's a super quick overview of reopening, okay? Other things that we need to talk about when we talk about reopening are things like academic intervention services. So that's really important. So, you know, when children go back to school, they are going to be out of the school building officially for 6 months. And so what we know from our perspective and your perspective as parents and families and educators is many of those children may need remediation. Many of those children have experienced trauma. Trauma from being sick themselves, trauma from losing someone they know. So that's why the social emotional portion of reopening is really, really important. Okay, so homework 1, you ready? So everybody take your pad. First, I want you to find your district's plan and read it. Okay. If you have questions, I want you to reach out to your PTA and reach out to your principal with those questions. It's really important for you all to be really understand your plan. And if you have questions, do that reach out. You know, reach out to your school building principal, reach out to your PTA and say, I have questions on these, or email your school building principal, copy your PTA. If you're a PTA leader, you should be having those meetings with your school building principals now. So that's really important. Homework number 1. Homework number 2 is, again, I want you to go through that Department of Health guidance. It's 23 pages, and just be familiar with it so you understand how your plan kind of compares with the Department of Health guidance. I will say, and it's too bad Rachel said her PTA wasn't a part of their plan, so that's too bad. But I hope they did engage parents in and of themselves. Number 2, you know what? If you are a glutton for punishment, read the SAD plan. It is great. There, like I said, there's 145 pages. If you have any questions on any of those documents, I want you to email me. I'm happy to walk through any of them with you. And it also might be helpful if you are a PTA leader, suggest to your school district, and that's how we talked about, really PTA role during this, suggest to your school district to have continued parent meetings on this. Parents still need to understand your plan even though it's submitted. So you have an entire month of August. So schedule some parent meetings so parents and families can have that conversation with your school building leaders. I'm just looking at my list to see what else did you want me to talk about, at least with reopening only? So let's put that in the chat box. Other reopening questions itself. I'm going to give it a minute. How do they plan to accommodate testing and testing accommodations? It's a really great question. I know that New York State and many of the stakeholders, ourselves and others are suggesting that, again, we should delay, especially the state assessments. We don't know yet what that's going to look like because that's controlled by the federal government. So we are continuing to advocate on that. What if students can't or won't wear a face covering? It's a great question. All students, generally, if you are a typically able student without a certain types of disabilities, can wear a mask. They might not like it, but they can wear a mask. Again, if you cannot wear a mask because of those medical reasons, then the district will have to work with you to figure out the safety of that student. It's a great question, Kara, and I'm going to suggest that. So Kara has suggested districts sharing pictures. That's a really great question about what it's going to look like. Maybe I'm going to write that down to send to the Superintendent's Association. I'm almost thinking maybe videos of rooms. I know our school district is doing that. It's called Wine and Skill Gardner Dickinson in Rensselaer County, and they post an every other day Facebook video of things that's happening in the school district. Protocol for students who will not wear a mask. You have to wear a mask to come back to school. Unless you have a medical issue, you're going to have to wear a mask, or the child is not going to be in a school building. There's little leeway on that issue. Let me keep scrolling down. Hold on a second. Great on parent meeting. Any new guidelines with children in the IEP and meeting their accommodations? This is a really great question, Rachel. Rachel asked about IEPs. There was new guidance. It is on our website, and I'm gonna cover it in the special education section. So if you go to our website and you go to programs on the top, and then parent resources, there's a section for special education topics. There's also new SED guidance on students with disabilities that we have also linked in the COVID area. So there are new rules about IEPs that they have to be met. They are trying to really have those collaborative conversations with school districts. That new guidance came out at the end of June because we and others had spoken with SED, realizing, in March, April, and May, things might not have been going so hot. So so Jennifer, what if districts won't allow voluntary distance learning? The district does not have to allow voluntary distance learning, just so you know. They do have to allow distance learning for children that are medically fragile or have, you know, health issues that would prohibit them from attending school. So there is, you know, but I would have that conversation. Our districts, as example, we do not have a distance learning option, but I know that our superintendent is working with the few families that do feel uncomfortable in what that may look like. I'm scrolling down. Yeah, oh, that's nice. Somebody posted our district did a day in the life of a student. I think that's a great idea. I'm writing that down. Will the state provide additional guidance on whether districts can or must offer full remote options for parents? So that is not, so the guidance is in there that the districts do not have to provide, it's my understanding as it stands right now, because things change, that districts do not have to provide a full remote option when we go back in September if the district opens for in-person instruction. But again, Janine, that is changing daily. So again, that's our website. You know, like I said, our district does not have that option, but they are working with families individually. I do know many districts do have some kind of remote option. What I am hearing are many districts are offering the first 10 weeks or the first term as remote or in person. Just by a show of hands, for those of you who know your district's plan, how many of you are doing both an in-person and a remote option for parents? Show of hands if you have a remote and in-person option. Let me see those hands. So I'm seeing many districts are having both. And I do think that is probably going to continue and it may expand. Like I said, our district is not, you know, but our district is very unique. It's a K-8 school district. We have about 400 children in the entire school district. I'm just going back to our questions, and then we're going to move on from reopening. We're also going to have a reopening webinar in a couple weeks just on reopening. So we'll talk about many of these things there. I'm just going to go keeping scrolling just to make through what I get. I'm a little concerned about districts coordinating their plans with BOCES. It's a great conversation because we know many of our students attend BOCES or transported outside the school district. So I'll tell you that is going to be complicated because then you're dealing with both a BOCES plan and the school district plan. Good comment, Carrie. Is there any guidance on the state to log on for distance learning if they are homesick just for the day or two? Beth, that's a great question. I have not seen that because I think that would be treated, I tend to think that would be treated as just a typical sick day. Any thoughts on chorus, woodwind, instruments, and gym need to be 12 foot apart? The thought on that, obviously, is I'm a saxophone player, so near and dear to my heart, is that when we're having those, you know, forced air, you do need to be more distant, so that's why they're doing that. What I am seeing is many, not the big bands, I'm seeing many districts have conversations about one-on-one, where there's one saxophone player or one trumpet player, and then one instructor. So I do feel that that's going to be more common than not. Just scrolling down still, just to make sure we have all the questions. Yes, and again, and as for, and remember, your district had to submit both an in-person plan, a hybrid plan, and for those hybrid plans, there is remote learning absolutely in the hybrid plan. That's the whole point of having the hybrid plan, which is a remote option plus an in-person option together. So of course, in your district's hybrid plan, you're going to have remote education for all students. What is the date by which the state needs to approve the district proposal? So that's great question, Sam. There hasn't been announced, and we're unsure if there's going to actually be like a real approval process. I think what's going to happen, I tend to think what's going to happen, and I don't know this for sure, is that we're going to see SED have conversations with school districts and DOH where plans may be tweaked. So that's a really good question. Scrolling down. Well, individual meetings with teachers by appointment. Yeah, so this is one thing I want to talk about is really the PTA's role now. So most of your school districts, I will gather if not all of your school districts, will have nobody extra in school buildings. They will have no volunteers when we start. They will, you know, I volunteer in our school building twice a week. I run our bowling club. I help in our Lego club. Our PTA runs a lot of our extracurricular clubs for our school building. So that's something that's up in the air. So it's a great question. I'm going to give you number 2 on homework. So everybody write it down. Number 2 is I want you to have that conversation and what that's going to look like. Do they have a volunteer policy? How are they going to supplement the extracurricular activities? What is that going to look like? And really, what is the PTA's role during this time? It's going to be advocacy, it's going to be parent education, and the school district is still going to need your support. So that's homework number 2. And I would love to hear back from you. So after you have those conversations about what the PTA role is in your school building, we actually have a PTA meeting on Monday with our PTA and our school building leaders to talk exactly about that. We've scheduled 2 hours to talk about what we can do to help them. So email me back when you do get the answer to that question, because it'll be interesting to see what your school building says. Is SED going to ask for parent input on the plans? No. The parent input should have happened before the plan was submitted to SED. Now SED and DOH are going to review those plans to make sure they're compliant with the regulation. State requirements on gym and things like that. Really, really great question. We haven't seen a lot of waivers yet on those issues. We did see some at the last Board of Regents meeting, but I expect we will see more. I should have got myself a water, don't mind me. I'm scrolling down. Yeah, great question, Beth. How is all of this going to affect PTA membership? We're actually going to be launching a new membership campaign around much of this. So stay tuned on that. I think, in my opinion, PTA is never needed more because parents are rightfully fearful. They don't understand the plans. They really need help in a lot of that. So we're going to continue to communicate how units can help during this especially month of August and September. But it's a really, really great question. Okay, I'm going to shift away from opening guidance, and I want to talk a little bit about special education now. Just as an FYI, just so you know, we're having a debate right now about exit exams, about the Regents exams. 60% of our states do not require an exit exam to graduate high school. Many of them only require a few exams. As you know, we require a lot. So we're establishing in New York State, the Board of Regents established a blue ribbon commission on the state's diploma options. We sit on that along with our sister organizations and many advocates. Originally, I'm going to go to the next slide. Originally, this was the timeline. So we should be really reporting a final report in full. Everything got pushed a year. So the commission itself hasn't been officially appointed. So we do expect that official appointment now in this coming month. So just know that that's happening. Some information I wanted to put on diploma requirements. Again, these are on our special education page on the website. They are here. You can go and read what the general education diploma requirements are. You can also read, which I'm going to talk about, the safety net and superintendent's diploma options. This is typically our pathway option right now. This is the typical pathway is 4 Regents examinations and then 1 of something else. Again, there's the link. I'm so very proud that many of our grassroots colleagues from around the state, PTA, others, and some of our sister organizations really pushed a meaningful exit option for students with disabilities. And lo and behold, we now have a superintendent's determination. There are rules here, as you can see. A parent has to request this, and the child has to have a current IEP and be receiving special education services. The child then can, even if they do not pass Regents exams, they can qualify for what's called a superintendent's diploma. So this is really great. There is, again, links to this on our special education page. Again, if to go there, go to NewYorkStatePTA.org. Then programs, then parent resources, a huge win, Beth, and then go to special education. We also have on that special education page information about what's called parent training and information centers. These are federally funded around the country and partially state funded. We have them in all counties. So if you are a parent of a student with disability, you can get help and assistance for no cost to you by going to your local parent training and information center. The links are here in this presentation, which will be posted online. They are also on our special education page. There's also some other resources there, like the Department of Education has its own special ed page. They have a pathway to graduation options, of course. They also have an IEP facilitation program that is free to families. So if you are having problems with your IEP, and then they also have a regional education department offices that can help you as well. I want to stop here and see if, and thanks Kara, Georgie, for posting that, and she posted the link that we have above in one of the other pages. Oh, thanks, Kevin. So Kevin said I needed water, and Kevin, one of my board members, just brought me water because he's on this. Thank you, Kevin. Our board members are wonderful. I want to stop here to see if anybody has any questions about special education before we move on. I'm going to give it a minute. Okay. Yeah, so for special education, I know many school districts are doing AIS plans or academic intervention services for children. We are suggesting that school districts actually do a very early assessment of all students to see where all students are when they come back. Do special education students need to go to school every day, or they can do the AB schedule? That is in your plan. So your plan dictates what that looks like for either elementary or middle school. So check out your plan. And I'm going to keep going while you guys type your questions, because I want to get to some of your comments too. Real quickly on mental health and social emotional learning. This is going to be very critical as students come into school buildings. Just so you guys know, and this is your homework number 3, so I'm writing down 3. Your school district is required to have a mandated mental health curriculum as a part of its health curriculum. This is new law. We're so excited. We sat on the task force and mental health advisory council that worked on this law. Many of our sister organizations and advocates did, and we're very happy to work with our School Counselors Association and the Mental Health Association on this and others. So that's your number 3. I want you to ask your school district what your plan and curriculum is and how they're going to tweak that plan for students coming back to school. Homework number 3. Just some little stats on mental health that are highly alarming. And this is very near and dear to my heart. I know many of you know my son has an anxiety and tic disorder that was, interestingly enough, discovered by his kindergarten teacher. I tear up when I think about it, because it's very hard for a parent to understand that your son, your children suffers from a mental health diagnosis. I resented it. No, he doesn't. Oh, I don't want him pegged with a mental health ailment, et cetera, when he was in kindergarten. And now, you know, he flourishes. We support him. So I fully understand this issue from a parent's perspective, because it's hard for Jackson sometimes. It's hard. This closure was very hard on him. He had a very difficult time, cried a lot, regressed a lot. So know that if you are a parent and your child has a mental health diagnosis, you are not alone. And that's where often your special education PTA can come into play. But feel free to give me an email if you ever need any personal support, because I have absolutely been there. But know that half of all chronic mental illnesses actually begin by the age of 14. So this is something that is not uncommon. So don't feel like you're alone. And there was always this stigma, I think, with mental health diagnosis. So we have to work as a PTA to get away from that stigma. And Kara, thank you. I will take being a rock star mom every day. We have to work to get away from that stigma because, you know, we need to reach out for help. We need to support each other more. I've always found it interesting that parents will post on Facebook, well, my kid has chicken pox, or my kid has the flu, or my kid broke his arm, but they won't post that my child is having an anxiety attack, or my child is diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Those are the things that we need to share more. So homework number 4, if you are a parent of a child, or you yourself have a mental health diagnosis, or need help, or your child, let's not stigmatize that. Let's share that and get them support. Namiko, great question. Is there a standard or consistency in the mental health curriculum in districts across New York State? Generally, the answer to that is no. There is guidance on that, and I don't know if that's on our website, so I'm actually going to add that on there. Because there is regulations surrounding that, and there is some models that are out there, but a school district, just like normal curriculum, does that themselves, because curriculum is very local. But great question. I also want to show you the website on the top of your screen right now, mental health ednys.org. This is really important. So the Mental Health Association of New York State has launched a new school mental health entire planning and task force and training. Check out their website. So that is homework, I guess, number 4/5. We'll loop it in with the last homework to support each other. So check out that website. They have some really great information on there on how you can support your student, on how your district, the things that your district could get support on. So please check out that mental health website too. I want to stop here and see if we have any questions on mental health and social emotional learning. Again, homework, talk to your school district about this, because every student, every single one of your students is going to need more mental health support. One thing we advocate for here at PTA is more school counselors, more mental health support. So really, really important to have that conversation. Any other questions on mental health before we move on? Should there be a training of teachers to recognize symptoms of PTSD from COVID? That's a great question. One thing that we know our sister organizations are doing right now is having those conversations about what teacher professional development has looked like. NYSA does a fantastic job. They have an entire bureau of their headquarters here in Albany and across the state that just works on teacher professional development. I'm going to reach out to them with that question and see if there's specific things we could be doing to help do that work. Susan, it was a great question. It seems like arts and ed programs regarding mental health be more vital than others. I wholly agree with you. You know, we had, I was on the governor's reopening council when we talked about a lot of these issues. And one day we had an entire 4-hour presentation from art teachers and Bernie Williams, which was interesting if you're a Yankees fan, because he's a big art advocate. And that's what we talked about. We talked about how arts and sports and music and extracurricular activities often help children mental health and social emotional wise. And these are the things that we're looking to cut right now because they may not be safe to sit in a classroom. So we had a really good conversation about that. And yeah, again, mental health resources. Yeah, so Susan, we do have some on the website. I know Mahaney's does have some up. We also have 2 mental health web chats. And just so you guys know, at 4 o'clock today, we're having another hour-long mental health panel. So make sure you sign in. It was sent to you guys. It's on the Start Meeting app, where we're going to have a vice president from the School Counselors Association, a superintendent and principal talk about mental health. So make sure you tune back in for that 4 o'clock presentation. It's fantastic. And we've also have 2 of those mental health chats. They are also posted on our website. I'm going to talk briefly about family engagement, and then we're going to shift to some of your other questions. National PTA has some fantastic resources that we use on family engagement. So this is your, say, homework number 5. So 5, write this down. Your school district should have a written family engagement policy according to, it was required under federal law. Have that conversation about how that's going to change. We know it's going to change. We know families and parents, unfortunately, may not be able to enter school buildings right now. So how are you going to engage families? How is that plan going to change? This is probably one of the most important conversations you have with your school building is how are we going to support families and students when we reopen? So have that conversation. Real briefly, they have identified kind of 4 principles of transformative family engagement. If you go to either our website or their website, you can read more about these concepts. I do want to make sure that I do chime in that we use the term family engagement. We no longer use the term family involvement. And here's my funny example. So family involvement is like speed dating, right? You go to dinner once, it takes half hour, everybody has a nice dinner, out the door you go. Family engagement is like a marriage. You are stuck with each other until you can't put up with each other anymore. So we want engagement. We want real collaboration and partnership. We don't want transactional stuff. Sending home a family newsletter in a backpack is involvement. Lovely, but not enough. Having meaningful parent meetings, having family-friendly walkthroughs, having those types of real interaction and collaboration. So here's your number 6. So number 5 was to check on your school district's family engagement plan. Number 6, and this gets a little bit more controversial, is to ask your school district leaders for a parent or family member to be appointed on every single decision-making committee in your school building. So if there is a decision made by a committee in your school building, ask that a parent or family member be involved in that decision and be appointed to that committee. So that's really, really important. Many districts will do that. Some districts will resist that. If they resist that, I want you to give me a call and I'll help. SED also has a series of resources for family engagements right on their website. So you can check that out. If you go right to SED's website, type in family engagement, these all pop up. So there's some pretty good information there. I'm going to switch over. Does anybody have any questions on family engagement before we switch over to some of the other things we wanted to cover? I'm going to give it a minute. Yes. Oh, Paige Pie is on. Paige is our wonderful literacy specialist, and that's one thing. I know there's another workshop on this. Paige is going to be giving it later, but Pick a Reading Partner program. It's a fantastic program. Check it out on our website. Yes, the PowerPoint is going to be available on the website on Monday and the recording. And Kara, Kara, do me a favor. Virtual cafes are such a great idea. Send me something. We'll get that up on our website too, Kara, about virtual cafes for family engagement. Okay, I'm going to switch over to our list that we had earlier. I'm going to try to get through as much as I can in 10 minutes. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to add to this slide too some of these things we're going over and schedule another one of these hot topics. We'll definitely do that because I'm feeling like, it's always crunched in an hour. We've talked a little bit about PTA role during closure. Again, communication are in parents and parents and parents. Yes, districts are still required to have parents on Title I committees. Good question. Diversity, inclusion, and social justice movement and Black Lives Matter. On our website, we have a number of statements that PTA has put out on both diversity, inclusion, and Black Lives Matter, so please check those out. We also have on our website an entire diversity and inclusion section where we'd link, so that again is under programs and goes to parent resources, and you'll see diversity and inclusion. We actually have a new, recent, I would say 2 years ago now, a new diversity inclusion full committee that is working on these issues. And so we're really, really excited about that work. They meet at least monthly. We have both a diversity coordinator. Hey, look, there she is. Ha, ha, ha. So Namiko is our diversity coordinator. She is on, so we're very excited to have her on the team and do that work. So we're really excited. We are heavily involved in this work. We are actually having a training by the Center for Racial Justice and Education for all of our governance team members. It was supposed to be at this event because we're virtual now. It's going to be in October because we're really committed to this. So check out our website. We have a lot of information on all of those topics there. Namiko's email address as our diversity corner, sorry Namiko, I'm throwing your email out there, you're gonna get inundated, is diversity@nyspta.org. So make sure you check with Namiko. Another thing on our website, we have volunteers, and I see Amani's on. She is our wellness coordinator. I see Kevin's on. He is our male engagement specialist. We have volunteers and staff members that work on all of these issues. You can find that information on our website. You go to our website and you go to About Us, and then you can see all of the information there. Oh, Susan, of course, Susan is our juvenile protection specialist. So Susan works on many of these issues with us as well. I'm going down. Somebody asked about funding in the federal government. So we are fighting right now for more funding for school buildings as we reopen. We were allocated a significant amount of funding. Absolutely not enough in the first CARES Act. We are working on now the HEROES Act and the new CARES Act or Stimulus 4 and 5 package to try to get more funding to school buildings right now. So we want to make sure that we continue to do that. If you are one of our members and we have your email, you can, I'm going to show you where it is actually. You can see our current alerts on our website. So if you go to advocacy, then take action campaigns. You can see, you know, right now we have 2 alerts going about funding for schools. So please make sure you go into those alerts, take action, and you can actually send emails right to your members of Congress on those issues. So I'll leave that up there. Again, we go to advocacy, take action campaigns, just as About Us contacts. This is where all of our specialists are. So that's important. Programs, parent resources. Again, here you can see diversity inclusion. You can see our special education info. We also have information on all of our other, you know, our literacy program, Pick a Reading Partner that Paige had mentioned. Digital inequities and school aid inequities. One thing we did find out with this closure is that many school districts and many families do not have access to broadband or Wi-Fi. We had one school district that actually deployed buses on a schedule around communities to try to have actual buses have Wi-Fi. So it was really interesting.
Girls.
Yeah. And I'm getting feedback from somebody, so if somebody can mute themselves, that would be great. I'm looking at response to intervention. We touched on it a little bit, that really have that conversation with your school district on what student you know, diagnostic assessment is going to look like when kids come back. Because I am a strong believer that I feel that every child needs to be assessed by their teacher. I'm not talking standardized bubble assessments. I'm talking, you know, we always have a summer lapse. Well, now we have a 6-month lapse possibly. So it's really important that we really support all of those students. Virtual event planning. I don't have a lot of information on that. My colleague Carol does that in the office. She actually just took a webinar on virtual event planning. So her email is CRAYMOND. If you go here to About Us, contacts, and down to staff, you'll find her. But we are going to be sharing some, again, best practices on what things, you know, some ideas that you could be doing for going back to school. Undocumented and immigrant children, always a high topic for us. Again, programs, parent resources. We have a whole section devoted to our immigrant and families and our English language learner families. So some resources there that you can look at. Question, could the virtual event planning be a part of the New York State PTA chats? Yes, I'm writing that down. It's a great idea. I'm keeping myself lots of notes. And boy, we covered a whole lot. Oh my goodness. So we have 3 minutes and I have to stop. In 3 minutes, what else do you want to talk about? We can put it in the chat. I do feel like we need to have more of these. And just so you know, we have been scheduling chats every other week, either on Wednesday or Thursday night at 7:30. So make sure you're checking those emails that you do get from us. Every other week, we're having a chat on something along these lines. But I do feel like we're gonna need a separate, like I said, a separate reopening chat. Amani, I know, Amani, you're on the line. We're definitely gonna need a separate wellness chat. And I'm adding the virtual event planning.
Everything related to reopening that has to do with physical and mental health.
Yeah, I do feel like that, Amani. One thing that I want to just show you is under leaders on our webpage, there's a tab for leadership webinar series. We do have some information there. Under our COVID webpage, Under guidance for unit leaders, let me get there. We have video recordings of our past chats. So special ed, mental health, PTA finance, PTA operations. So please check those out. We try to have them every 2 weeks. So please check out those videos. And that's all I have for you. I'm so bummed we're done. That went so quick. Does anybody have any other, with the state meeting being virtual this year, so good question. So we are going to be making a decision around Labor Day on whether we're going to have our convention in person or virtual. So stay tuned. Fundraising, great question. So I'll tell you right now, we are trying to find fundraising partners that are purely virtual. We're going to be launching something next week, so stay tuned on that. Oh yeah, so Joanna, make sure you check out those chats. One more minute. Any other thoughts or questions? So then I'll leave you with this. This is always my last thought. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, it's not going to get better. It's not. Listen, this work is hard and it is tough and there is so much to do and it can get overwhelming. And I'm a parent and I'm a working mom and I get it, right? No one wants to do the 6 Kyles of homework that I just gave. No one wants to go to the PTA meetings. No one wants to volunteer. No one wants to do all of this work. But if we don't do it, then who? I firmly believe, oh look, I tear up. If anybody knows me, they know I'm a crier. I believe with all of my heart that parents and families and PTA is the most important thing that we can do to support our children. You guys have the voice and the support and the expertise to help our educators because they need help. They need support. Many of them are fearful for going back themselves. We need to support our families as we reopen schools in a safe way. We need to support our school building leaders. We need to support our communities and our kids. So please, do this work. I know it's hard. I know it sucks sometimes. I get it. I don't want to go to a PTA meeting on Sunday for 3 hours, but on that PTA meeting, where our PTA is going to talk about building 3 outdoor classrooms for our school building. And because we did a booster run fun run as example, our PTA just bought every single child in our school building all of their school supplies for September, and we bought the school district 200 new Chromebooks. This is why we do this work. It is you and me. Each and every day, you have a chance to make a difference in a child's life. And I say that with all of the passion in my body. Every day you can make a difference. And every single day that you don't make a difference, in my opinion, is a day wasted. I'm so thankful that you joined us. I really hope you are going to